Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely deconstruct an object that's, well, probably sitting right on your desk right now. An object that has literally shaped human history. I mean, we use them, we chew on the ends of them, we constantly lose them, and we almost never give them a second thought. But that changes today. Let's dive right into the absolutely fascinating journey of the humble pencil.
So think about the last time you jotted down a quick note or, doodled in the margins of a notebook. When was the last time you truly thought about the pencil you're actually holding? Like, what is that dark gray stick inside the wood actually made of? Well, if you immediately said lead, you are definitely not alone. But you're also entirely wrong.
Yeah, here is the biggest secret of the pencil. That dark core has literally never been made of lead. No, it's actually made from a brilliant mineral called graphite. See, when people first discovered graphite, they mistakenly thought it was just a weird type of lead, which is exactly where that super confusing name comes from. But graphite is actually a form, or an allotrope, if we're being scientific, of the element carbon, meaning the exact same stuff you're using to fill in a Sunday crossword puzzle is chemically related to diamonds. Crazy, right?
Okay, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. The myth and history. 2. Decoding the scale. 3. Modern manufacturing. And 4. Sustainable innovations.
All right, moving right into part 1, the myth and history. Invention out of necessity.
Now, the story of the modern pencil doesn't start in some peaceful, quiet artist studio. It actually starts amid international conflict and pure economic desperation. Back in the 1500s, this incredibly high-quality graphite was discovered in England. It was so good, it was used for marking wool and even molding cannonballs. But fast forward to 1794. The French Republic is facing a severe economic blockade, and they literally cannot import this precious British graphite. So a French minister basically tasks a guy named Nicolas Jacques Conté to invent a pencil that doesn't rely on foreign imports. And get this, within days, Conté figures out how to mix lower-quality powdered graphite with clay, pressing it between two carved halves of wood. By 1795, he patents the exact modern pencil we still use today. Talk about working well under pressure.
And the thing is, Conté wasn't just some random pencil maker. The guy was a genuine, full-blown polymath. Napoleon Bonaparte himself said Conté was a universal man with taste, understanding, and genius, capable of creating the arts of France in the middle of the Arabian desert. I mean, what a compliment. He was actually a pioneer in aeronautics who built and flew hot air balloons. When he was deployed in Egypt with Napoleon's army, Conté essentially kept the entire expedition alive. He was out there building windmills, minting coins, and crafting highly precise surgical instruments basically out of thin air. His mechanical genius was just totally unparalleled.
Okay, let's look at part 2, decoding the HB scale.
So by solving that graphite shortage with clay, Conté accidentally laid the entire groundwork for how we grade pencils today. The exact science behind the marks you make on paper really just comes down to a simple recipe. You see, when a pencil rubs against the surface, some of the mineral flakes off and sticks to it. But you can control exactly how dark or how hard that mark is. Basically, adjusting the ratio of that dark graphite powder to the lighter kaolin clay changes absolutely everything about how a pencil writes.
Once you get that, understanding those letters and numbers stamped on your pencil is a breeze. Most of the world uses the HB scale. H simply stands for hardness, which just means the manufacturer added more clay. A harder pencil leaves a lighter mark and keeps a sharp point for much longer. B stands for blackness, meaning more graphite went into the mix. This gives you a softer core that leaves a really dark, rich mark, but it dulls a lot faster. An HB pencil sits perfectly right in the middle of this spectrum. Now, in the US, they tend to use a numerical scale, where your classic number 2 school pencil is basically the equivalent to that middle ground HB grade.
But here is a really fascinating quirk of the industry. There is actually no universal legally binding standard for these grades at all. Every manufacturer has their own completely proprietary recipe. Because of this, a Japanese HB pencil will often feel noticeably softer and leave a much darker mark than an HB pencil produced over in Europe. It all just comes down to regional consumer preferences. So finding your perfect writing tool is honestly just a matter of personal experimentation.
Moving on to part 3. Modern pencil manufacturing.
So, we understand the chemistry now, right? But how does this wet clay and graphite mixture actually get perfectly centered inside a wooden stick on a massive industrial scale? Well, the process is surprisingly intense. First, the graphite and clay are pulverized in a giant drum with water for up to 72 hours, literally 3 straight days, just to create this really fine wet paste.
This muddy mixture is then dried out, ground up all over again, remoistened, and finally forced through an extrusion machine to form these really long, thin rods. Meanwhile, premium wood, usually California cedar, is cut into strips and carved with super precise grooves. The graphite leads are glued right into these grooves. A second piece of wood is glued right on top like a sandwich. And finally, they're cut into those individual hexagonal shapes we all know.
Now actually, let me back up a second, because those extruded graphite rods have to survive an absolutely brutal environment before they ever touch the wood. They aren't just dried out, they are baked in a massive kiln at a staggering 815 degrees Celsius. To put that into perspective, that is over 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. This intense, crazy heat is absolutely required to transform that fragile paste into a smooth, incredibly resilient writing core.
And the wood goes through its own extreme trial too. Once those wooden pencil sandwiches are glued together with the lead inside, you can't just cut them immediately. The adhesive actually contains a special elastic solvent to protect the lead. To make sure there's a flawless bond, the assembled boards are placed under a massive hydraulic press. They literally have to survive an entire hour under several tons of pressure. Only after surviving this stress test are they sliced into their final hexagonal shape, painted, and sometimes fitted with that trusty pink eraser.
And finally, that brings us to part 4, sustainable innovations.
Now, the classic cedar pencil is definitely a marvel of engineering, but producing billions of them every year requires cutting down a massive amount of trees. Thankfully, this traditional industry is actively being revolutionized. One highly successful solution you can actually find on the market right now is the Bic Evolution. It's a completely wood-free pencil made of a synthetic resin through a highly unique patented extrusion process. Because they make it using 50% recycled material, it's a huge win for the environment. Plus, the synthetic resin body makes it highly shock-resistant. And hey, if you do manage to snap it, it never splinters like traditional wood does. But scientists are pushing the eco-friendly boundaries even further. Researchers have developed an award-winning concept called the Bancel, and their goal? To replace both the wood and the mined graphite entirely. How on earth do you do that? Well, with wasted banana peels. Seriously, they take dried banana peels and bake them in a furnace at 500 degrees Celsius for 3 solid hours to produce activated carbon. Then, they create a core by mixing 66% of this banana-derived carbon with 34% clay.
To make this organic, fruity mixture actually hold its shape, they have to rely on some pretty advanced chemistry. They add sodium carbonate and hydroxypropyl methyl cellulose as binders. Don't worry about the big words. Basically, these are high-performance polymers that are normally used in advanced industrial ceramics so they don't lose their shape during high-temperature extrusion. They even make the outer casing of the pencil from blended, filtered banana fibers that get dried for 54 hours. The end result? A completely sustainable pencil made from literal food waste that tests show writes almost exactly like a traditional HB pencil. How cool is that?
So, from a random 16th century discovery in England to a brilliant French polymath surviving an economic blockade to massive kilns crushing hydraulic presses and now high-tech baked banana peels, the story of the pencil is honestly anything but ordinary. The next time you jot down a quick note or sketch a little drawing, I really hope you'll remember the incredible journey of this tiny object. And more importantly, I hope it makes you look around your desk and ask yourself, what other everyday marvels might you be completely taking for granted? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.